to another Global Home Business Pro team training call with today's special guest, Russ DeVan. Today, Russ has a message called How to Create an Unlimited Resource for Prospects for You and Your Team Without Purchasing Leads or Using Warm and Cold Market Thinking. Russ will again challenge the typical paradigms that people have been taught about how to find prospects, and will give us some great alternatives that just might be the aha moment you've been waiting for to not only increase the success of your prospecting efforts, but also completely change the way you approach the act of prospecting itself. And now, here with today's Global Home Business Pro team training call is Russ DeVan.
My name is Russ DeVan, and I'm speaking to you on behalf of my good friend Cliff Walker, who is my sponsor. This week, we're going to talk about a bit of a continuation of last week's call, in which we covered a lot of different things that I thought were the most important things when it comes to network marketing, but mostly the things that kind of stick people or stop people or sometimes even scare people away from network marketing. And one of the things that I think is critical to, if you can master in this business, is this whole conversation about prospecting. It's not only important from the standpoint of yourself, having unlimited resources for prospects as you build your business, but it's an incredibly important thing as a sponsor that you can remove this bugaboo, this boogeyman that everybody is so afraid of and has so many concerns about. And I personally believe that it's one of the things that keeps people out of network marketing or causes people even to quit network marketing because they don't have a good sense of how this works. And largely, I believe, it's out of what they've been told and taught for so many years and what people generally think. It's a paradigm I'm going to challenge today. Now, everything you're going to hear in the course of the next 45 minutes or maybe a little more is, I want to say, like the disclaimer I gave last week, it's my opinion, but it comes from 35 years of winning and losing at this business and really uncovering and discovering things about it that I never would have known if I hadn't stayed with it or really explored some things, if I'd just gone by what was told to me. Now, as I said a moment ago, it's my opinion that one of the things that stops people in this business most often is their concern about where do I go? Who do I talk to? And the common thinking in our business for so long has been the idea that there's a warm and a cold market. And people will even take positions on which one of those is better. The warm market, I guess, is people that you know. And the logic is, if you know friends and family and neighbors, they're more likely to listen to you than strangers. Well, I personally don't think that's true. As a matter of fact, I feel that friends, neighbors, and relatives can be possibly the worst place to go to build a business. Number one, if they're valuable relationships, you don't necessarily want to complicate them or compromise them in a business situation. Secondly, sometimes we don't have as much credibility with friends, neighbors, and relatives as we think we do, which we often find out when we go to ask them to take a look at our business or buy a product that we happen to be selling. So the other alternative to the warm market is the cold market, and I don't even like the way that sounds. I mean, how many of you like to be cold? But the cold market deals with strangers, and if it's one thing that terrifies people more than anything else, maybe even as much as public speaking in front of strangers, it's talking to strangers. At least that's what people think commonly. But I say that isn't even true, because we have no problem talking to strangers. We talk to strangers all the time. We meet people and standing in the line for a movie, or we go to a baseball game or a soccer match, and we meet people we don't know because we sit down with them. And before the end of the game, because we're rooting for the same team, we're best friends, exchanging phone numbers and hugging and everything when our team scores a goal. So it's not connecting with strangers or speaking to strangers that's the issue any more than it is friends, neighbors, and relatives having the most credibility with us. I believe that what it is with strangers, it's talking to strangers with a hidden agenda that people don't like. You see, the only time we talk to strangers and it's awkward is when we have something that we want the stranger to do, but we don't want them to know what we're up to. Okay, then it becomes a weird situation talking to a stranger. Also, talking to a friend, neighbor, or relative, actually. So if those two things maybe aren't the best, then you might ask, well, what is, and what else is there other than people you don't know or people you know? Who does that leave in the world? Well, it leaves a whole lot of people, because I don't believe it's whether you know them or don't know them that makes them a prospect. And that's where we're going to start our conversation. I believe that what makes someone a prospect are their character traits or the qualities that they have that will make them successful in a network marketing business. We're going to discuss what those are in a minute. But a second paradigm that I want to exploit is, I don't believe it's finding the right thing to say. I mean, there's been so many times when I've been teaching and training, if you will, on network marketing, and I've asked people what their big concern is or what they'd like to know. And the one thing that gets asked repeatedly is, what do you say to somebody to get them interested in this product? What do you say to someone to have them be interested in the business? Like, there's this holy grail that people are pursuing, and it's a magical statement of some kind where people go, oh, whoa, gee, that's all you had to say, I'm in. And that's just not the way it works. So maybe another thing that we've been doing improperly is assuming that it's what we say that interests people. And I say it's not what we say. It's what we hear. It's what we listen for. And I think that listening is not given nearly enough credit. So today begins a new kind of training for you. And I'm going to call this untraining, because I want you to just step back for a moment and let go of what you thought it was or thought you were supposed to do, just for today. And when I offer you these ideas and when I speak to you about what I'm going to speak to you about, I want you to just try it on and see if it fits, like you would a piece of clothing. And if it's a new possibility for you, if it works, if it sounds like something that you can do and do easily and comfortably, then do it. If not, and you've got something that's working better, well, certainly do that. So I'm just here to offer another possibility for how you can create an unlimited resource for prospects without buying them and without going to the warm and the cold markets. That's what today is about, and I call it untraining, because I'd like you to unlearn some of the things that you've learned for so long and come to believe are true, because I personally don't believe they are. So let's get back to the listening part for a moment. You know, we listen all the time. Like, it's impossible not to listen. Even when we're trying not to listen, we're listening something. Even if it's listening to our own mind speak to us, we're always listening. But we have what I call an automatic kind of listening. When we get in conversations with people, we're not listening from a standpoint of empathy. We're not listening for what they really are trying to communicate to us many times. We're listening to something else. And the something else might be our turn to talk. The something else might be, oh, well, they've just said something that gives me a good idea. I want to tell them this now. Or another kind of listening is, will you hurry up and finish what you're saying, because I've got something really important to tell you. And with all those things going on in our brain, we can't hear what other people are saying. And this occurs not just everywhere, not just at work, not just at home. It occurs like throughout our lives, and we're not even aware of it. We don't pay attention to people, and as a result, we and they feel unheard. We don't feel like the things that we're saying are really getting across. And we've learned to kind of accept that as part of social interaction, depending on who we're talking to. But it really doesn't work if you're trying to connect people. And I think that one of the problems we have with prospecting in this business is actually a cultural problem. At least it's cultural in the United States, and I'm sure that in other cultures across the world, it's probably pretty common too. But I believe that with the onset of social media, which I believe has been a great connecting mechanism, but it's also been a great disconnecting mechanism. I mean, have you ever gone to a restaurant and seen everybody at a table, playing with their cell phone instead of talking to each other? There's people that text while they're driving. There's all kinds of people that don't pay attention to each other anymore. And as a result, I believe that we have forgotten. It's like a muscle we haven't used. We've forgotten how to listen. We've forgotten how to connect with people. And it's so important. I mean, if you've heard it once, you've heard it 1,000 times, that success in network marketing is about relationships. Well, if that's true, we have one of the most dysfunctional families I've ever seen, because people don't approach this business to build a relationship. They approach it to sell something or get somebody to do something. And I've got to tell you, I don't believe that anything, even a sale or enrollment or sponsorship, any of that happens unless it happens against the background of a relationship. And how good that relationship is or can be depends on how you're listening. Now, this doesn't just mean that this is a lot of, woo-woo stuff that I'm trying to put on you, or self-image psychology. I believe it's much more basic than that. I believe that the fact that we don't listen creates something that plays right into natural law. And one of the natural laws is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if the holy grail in network marketing has been connected to what you speak and what you say rather than what you hear, then what we're doing is we're going out and we're talking at people with benefits, with opportunity, with whatever it is. And whatever that is, it's a force. And natural law says that for every action in the universe, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So I'm going to ask you, what is the opposite reaction? What is the opposing action to a force? And the answer is it's resistance. That every time you create a force, as a matter of fact, the power of a force is only measured against how much it's resisted. When there's a hurricane or a typhoon or a tornado, they are ranked not based upon their power, but upon the force with which they strike against something. So let me ask you this question. We know force exists in the universe, but does resistance exist in the universe without force? And the answer is no. In order for resistance to exist, a force has to be there, or else resistance doesn't have a place. So my theory, and the one that I'm going to try to promote to you today, is that if you remove force, resistance disappears. And let me give you an example. What resistance is there to listening? Well, listening is not a force. Listening is a form of generosity. It's where, like, you are paying attention to someone and what they're saying just for the value of that, just for the value of listening to them so that they can be heard. Now, I've got to tell you, this is a distinction that has shifted my life in terms of not only productivity in this type of a business, but in relationships, in terms of family, in terms of coaching, whatever it is that you might be interested in improving on. This isn't just a network marketing skill. This is a life skill. And you'll never master it, because actually we're all poor listeners. I know I still am, and I probably will never gain a mastery of listening. It's something you just have to commit to and work at all your life and pay attention to. So here's why that becomes important. I believe that we're not really interested in people to be interested in people. And I believe that culturally that's known. So when you go up to talk to a stranger or even a family member about something new, and you're kind of hiding what you're doing, you've got that kind of hidden agenda. You're not talking to them because you just happen to suddenly be interested in them. You're talking to them because you'd like them to be interested in your product. You'd like them to be interested in your business opportunity. That's why you're talking to them. Okay? And as soon as you start that conversation and get into it, what they pick up on is that you're not really talking to them because you're interested in them. You're talking to them because you want something. And they know you want something, so they want to tell you up front that they don't want whatever it is you want. Now, that's the kind of resistance that I'm talking about. But if we go back for a few minutes where I was earlier, and we start to talk about you being at a football game, or you being at a soccer game, or a baseball game, or you go to a reunion, or you go to some social function, and you're meeting people that you didn't know before, and you don't have an agenda, and you begin to speak to people, you know how easy that is because you speak to people and you don't have anything you have to say to them. You don't have anything you have to get done. You're just interested in them. Well, here's the first axiom. Interested people are interesting. Let me say that again. Interested people are interesting. Another way to say that is when you remove force, resistance disappears. It has to. So your first exercise that I'm going to give you today is that just for practice, what you may want to do is stop prospecting. I don't mean like stop it forever. I mean maybe stop the way you've done it and just for fun, have the exercise of getting interested in people. Know who you're talking to. That even applies to people in your family, which I will assert you probably don't know as well as you think you do, or distant family, or even friends and neighbors. We don't know those people. We think we do, but we really haven't been that interested in them before to really find out what they're thinking. For instance, culturally, what do we think about people that complain? Well, generally we're taught that complaining is negative, so you don't want to be around negative people. You don't want to be around people that complain. So when we hear people complaining, we're kind of like, oh, well, they're whining, they're complaining, let's get away from them. But how about this? What if we saw complaints as a gift? Like people complain because they're concerned about something. But we never get past the complaint to find out what it is they're concerned about, because the complaint stops us. What if you could get really interested in what people are concerned about? What if that was the topic of conversation? What concerns you the most? What concerns you about your health? What concerns you about your family? What concerns you about the world? What concerns you about where you live? And just generously listen to that. Do you know how much opportunity there is in just that question? The other thing that drives people, and people are kind of thrown to speak about, are their commitments. If you're really listening to people in a generous conversation, you can hear things that are important to them. Another way I'd say that is things that they're committed to. So people's concerns and commitments are really what drive their behavior, including their buying behavior. But how often do we listen or even get interested in what people are concerned about or what they're committed to, what's really important to them? For instance, we wouldn't go up to somebody who is obviously overweight and say, boy, have I got a good weight loss product for you. we wouldn't do that unless we were incredibly tacky. We wouldn't really do that. However, it's a probably good bet that somebody who's overweight has concerns about it. I'm not suggesting you ask somebody if they're concerned about their weight. What I'm saying is, if people feel safe with you, if you start to talk to people about their health, that'll come up in the conversation. And you can hear it. Now, that doesn't mean you want to jump on it with a product and a solution. What it means is you gain their trust by empathizing with their concern, just by hearing it. Because, nobody cares about that unless they want to sell them something. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make. All right. So listening is a critical part of what I'm about to say. Here's another critical part. Is in this warm and cold market thing, we forget that it's not whether we know someone or don't know them that makes them a prospect. I say it's their character traits or qualities. So what you need to do is become aware of the qualities that make someone a good prospect. And there's two really easy places to look for that. One is if you are a distributor, then I'd say that you have the qualities of a good prospect. I'm going to list some of those in a minute. But also, you not only can look at yourself and see what is it about you that makes you a good candidate for this business or prospect for the products. What is it about you? And also, another great place to look is I just went to a convention in Las Vegas that Jeunesse had. It was phenomenal. It was relatively small, about 3,000 people. But I met more wonderful, wonderful people there. And every speaker that was on stage, whether they were a distributor or a member of the company, what was clear to me is the powerful characteristics that they had. They had authenticity, like they weren't putting on a pretense. They were dynamic in their nature. It didn't matter whether they were small lady from China who happened to live in Canada that built a double diamond business or a dynamic visionary leader in the company. All of them had similar traits. Let's talk about what some of those traits are. The traits that I say you have and people that succeed wildly in this business have are traits like this. Number one, and this is my personal favorite and my most important trait for a prospect in this business, is someone who is open-minded. And what I mean by that is, did you ever notice how people that know everything, they seem to have an answer for everything. They know all about what network marketing is. They know it's this. They know it's that. They know all about what you're doing. They know what you've done before. The people that are like that aren't really open to anything, are the ones that have absolutely nothing going on in their lives, and yet they know everything. So when you're looking for people that know that they don't know everything, people that are open to new possibilities, people that are open to network marketing, you want to find out if somebody's open to network marketing, a real good way to do it, ask them. Like, we're always sneaking around the conversation about multi-level or network marketing, trying not to let them know until it's the right time to let them know for fear of what they might think about network marketing. I say, why not get that out up front? Like, ask them if they're open to the possibility of an opportunity with you if it's network marketing. And they go, oh, my gosh, no, I never want to do anything like that. Guess what? They're not a prospect. Being open to possibility is probably the single most important trait of an entrepreneur, in my opinion, because they're also open to the idea that they can have more than they have right now. They're open to coaching. They're open to direction. They're open to doing more. So that is a critical quality of mine, and I suggest you look at making it a critical quality of yours. And now this is something that you can actually learn to hear with someone. You can actually explore it in conversation. Not even talking about the business or network marketing, about other things. Find out how open people are or how set in their opinions they are. That's a great place to start. Here's another thing that I know that you have that's also fundamental to somebody that succeeds in this type of a business, and that's courage. Now, if you ask me, courage is greatly under-recognized today. There's courage everywhere. Sometimes it takes courage just to get out of bed. It really does. And courage comes in all forms. But I'll tell you what, if you're going to start your own business, if you're going to do a business that involves becoming powerful at network marketing distribution, you better have guts. You better have it, because it's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. Because it's hard work sometimes. It's also a lot of fun, and it's also easy sometimes. But it's not easy to change things around your life or change the way you've always done things. It takes courage to do that. It takes courage in a vision. It takes courage in a direction. It takes courage to trust and believe in your sponsor or whoever your upline is and the way they're directing you. They had courage to get where they are. They couldn't have gotten there being cowards. They just can't. And you know what? We're all cowards to an extent too, and that's something to recognize. But to the degree that you can summon courage and have courage in your convictions and your belief, very, very important. Guess what? Courage is also something that you can spot in people. So is ambition. You know, you can tell people that are self-motivated, people that are doers, people that it's okay that they have to work hard. And they don't want to work hard all the rest of their lives. They want to work right now and have a direction and have a plan that they can work so that maybe they'll never have to work again. And that's, for me, called ambition. That's the proper kind of positive ambition. Here's one more, and this is also critical. And I say everyone listening to this call has had every one of these qualities, every one, or you wouldn't already be a distributor in this business. This is probably, next to being open, my second favorite or most important quality. And that's how interested in people can someone be. Like, people get called people persons all the time because sometimes they're good at selling, which can also mean they're very good at talking. Because a lot of selling and the model of selling is based on resignation. They actually talk people into things. That's why people don't want to sell and are so afraid of being sold, is because they want to have decisions. They want to have choices. They want to buy. They don't want people, beating them into submission. So people who genuinely like serving people, who genuinely get interested in people, who have a big heart and a lot of tolerance for people and their good sides and their bad sides, those are the people that can be most successful at this business. And you know what? That also discounts an awful lot of people. And I kind of understand that, because people can be a real pain in the butt. People can wear on you, the way they are and the stuff they've got. But part of being good at this business is in being able to listen and get interested in people no matter what they sound like. You don't have to sponsor them. You don't have to put them in the business. But you know what? If you learn to be really interested in people, you won't believe how interested people get in you, because they don't get interested in very often. People at work don't care. Even sometimes the people at home don't really want to listen to them. Okay, so you can actually find people who are great with people, and you can be great with people just by listening. So the quality of people who are really good at being with people that I would call people persons, or people that genuinely can show an interest in other people, that is a tremendous quality to have. So, second exercise is I want you to build a model for what you're looking for in a prospect. And that model is based partly on the qualities that you had that made you a good prospect for the business. And take people that you admire that you've met in this business, whether they're in your upline or another line. What are the qualities that when you see those people, you go, gosh, I wish I'd sponsored them? Because you know what? You can. But you need to know what they look like. You won't sponsor someone like that when you walk by them on the street. You won't sponsor someone like that if you don't get interested in somebody that could be somebody like that. You don't even know who you're sitting next to. That's my whole point. But once you learn how to have conversations, or I shouldn't say learn, I should say remember how to have conversations with people, and once you start getting interested in anybody, because you can stop that interest at any time. Once you start getting interested in anybody you want, and you know what qualities you're looking for, those qualities will start to show up in people. And that's when you do this. You notice those qualities and you tell the people that you noticed them. In other words, if you notice that somebody is open-minded and how unusual that is in today's culture, tell them. Don't tell them because you want to get them in the business. Tell them because you noticed it. If you notice that somebody has exhibited some kind of courage or somebody has exhibited how good they are with people, notice it. Tell them about it. Because that doesn't hit them like a compliment. It's something different. When you're seeing that thing in somebody that you admire and you tell them about it and you acknowledge it, what happens is that creates a certain bond that they don't have with anybody else that hasn't noticed it. So it's noticing those qualities in people and telling them you noticed it that creates a special connection with you. Now, a lot of things can happen out of that connection. One thing could be maybe at some point you'll talk about the products or the opportunity and they'll be a good candidate for your business. But another possibility is just a friend. So this can always be a win-win situation where you can go out and meet people you didn't know before, or even meet people you did know before and notice things that you didn't, and you can begin to distinguish whether they're a prospect for the business or not, whether you know them or not. So the second activity is to make a list of character traits of qualities that you have that make you perfect for this type of opportunity, and make a list of the qualities that you admire in other powerful people that are in this type of a business. Then become very familiar with what those qualities sound like. Then all you have to do is give up prospecting and start meeting people. Start getting interested in people. But I'm not going to stop it there. Okay, I know better than that. Okay? What I'd like to do is draw out now some possible distinctions or categories that you may want to have conversations with people that are in one of these categories. But it's different from the warm and the cold market or making a who do you know list. These are actually distinctions of people in our lives that everybody has, but nobody sees them in this particular vein or venue. All right? So the first category that we all have are people in our life that I would call associates. Now, I just made that up, the associates word, so don't get stuck on that. Let me define what an associate is. It's somebody who you know, but you don't know very well. An associate is somebody who you might run into at church every week or always see at the gym. Or, you see them at business because they work on the same floor. And, you see them all the time, but all you know is their first name is Jim or Mary, but you don't know anything past that. But for some strange reason, you like Jim or Mary. You like this person you run into at church. You always wave to each other. You always say, hi, how are you? And, you really don't know because they don't know you and you don't know them. Maybe that's the reason you like each other so much. But my point is, you don't really know each other, but you have this I like you and you like me thing. So if you know the type of person I'm talking about, what would happen if you started a conversation with them? And that conversation sounded like, we've been waving to each other for 2 years now, and it occurred to me the other day, I don't know anything about you, but I would love to get to know you better. Would you like to have a cup of coffee next week? Would you like to, come over and meet my family? Would you like, whatever is comfortable for you? How about a conversation just to get to know somebody? And what if they responded and said, oh my gosh, I'd love that. I've had the same thought, but I'm so glad you asked. Well, if they react that way to you, or if you would react that way to them, the reverse is generally true. So if they came to you and said, hey, you know what, Russ, I keep seeing you in here, but I don't even know your last name, but you seem like a nice guy, and I'd really like to get to know you better. Would you be honored by that, flattered by that? Would you be suspicious of it? Because if it warms you, then the chances are if you did the reverse, you went to them and said the same thing, then they'd say, yeah, now this doesn't mean that you'll get a prospect out of it. What it is, it's an opportunity to explore somebody who you already have a good feeling about. You might find out after a 15-minute conversation you don't really not that interested in them. But if you take 15 minutes to see if you can be interested in them, chances are they'll be interested in you too, and all kinds of things can come from that. Now, the categories I'm going to mention, this is probably the weakest one, but a point I want to make right now is a great misnomer, a great misunderstanding in our type of business, is you have to know all these people. You have to know all these people to get, well, number one, no, you don't. As a matter of fact, for me, it's much better to know fewer people. It's much better to know who has a better chance of succeeding at this business than just putting somebody in because they have a heartbeat, or because they're mildly interested and we're desperate to put someone in the business. Okay, so this associates category is powerful because it keeps growing. The more you pay attention to this category, the more you realize there's all these people out there that you don't know that you actually like and could get to know. That's number one. They're potentially a prospect, but they're also potentially a friend or a relationship, and either one works, doesn't it? Okay, here's category number two. People who you are a customer of. Now, this doesn't mean just people you do business with. I'm referring specifically to people who you give money to all the time, largely out of loyalty and service. The people who cut your hair, the people who do your nails, your doctors, the people who you buy insurance from. I know this is starting to sound like a who do you know list, but it's much more specific, and I'll tell you why. Because once we find a relationship, somebody that cuts our hair right, somebody that treats us well as a doctor, somebody who we buy insurance from, we don't go out and keep finding new ones. We stay with that one. And we bring them business all the time on a regular basis. And they have other people, other clients that do the same. Now, your business with them doesn't buy you their having to be a prospect or getting your business, but it does buy you something very important. It buys you credibility because their business is dependent on pleasing people and being interested in people just like you. So when you go in and you haven't been somewhere to get your hair done in a month, and you go in the place, what's the first thing someone asks you? And generally it's, how have you been? What's new? And instead of really using that opportunity to talk about something that we're building, something we're creating, something you could include them being a customer of ours, we generally say, oh, nothing new, oh, we're fine, good, okay, cut my hair, I'll see you later. And you know what? It's a lost opportunity because the one thing your business does buy is their interest in you, because they are not likely to tell you they aren't interested in anything you've got to say. They just won't. That's bad business, bad policy. They're not going to say, look, if you came in here and I asked you how things were going and you think you're going to sell me something, you can just go out the door now. No, they'll never do that. If they ask you how you're doing, you tell them, oh my gosh, did I tell you I've started my own company? What are they going to say to that? And do you realize that every single person you do business with and you've given probably thousands of dollars to over the years or even over a year, do you know that they are very interested in whatever it is you're up to because they don't want to lose you as a client? And you never have to use that as a bargaining chip because it doesn't need to be stated. It's implied by the fact that they asked you how you were, how you were doing, good to see you, been a long time, tell me all about your life. They give you a huge open door to speak about whatever it is you're excited about. Wow. Okay? Now, let's say out of these first two categories, you can only come up with 10 people initially. That's wonderful. That's 10 new, excellent prospects. Okay, well, they aren't prospects yet, but they're candidates to be prospects, aren't they? That's good enough because those lists keep growing and growing and growing. The more familiar with this you get and the better you get at listening and paying attention to who people are in your life. Third category. The third category I like to call, and I just made this name up, but I call it cross-cultural networking. And this comes from me noticing and doing some research that generally people network initially with their own kind. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to be politically incorrect here, but we generally stay within the boundaries of our race, sometimes our religion, and other things that are cultural paradigms that we just are not used to getting outside of. But if you think in terms of building a global business, and maybe you're most comfortable or most familiar with people who are like you, imagine the potential to explore a culture outside of your own. And I actually first discovered this when I was living in Chicago, and I had the good fortune to have the interest from a beautiful little woman who happened to be Filipino, and she wanted to buy some of my fuel additive. And I gladly sold it to her, but didn't think it would really go beyond that until she called me 2 weeks later and wanted some for her boss, who had a very successful family practice in Chicago, and he also happened to be Filipino. And before I knew what was going on, her boss asked me if I would come to his house one Wednesday night and speak to some people about this fuel additive. And when I went to his home, he had 85 friends there who came over for a little party that he was throwing. And within a year, I had thousands and thousands of people that were connected to that little Filipino nurse who came up to me at a gas station and said, "What's that?" Now, this was 35 years ago. But my point is, I now will network outside of my own community and target the Hispanic community and say, I'm expanding my business, my company, into the Hispanic community, and I need a good contact, a good person in that community that I can work with who will make a lot of money introducing me to people in the Hispanic community, because I don't have any credibility there. I don't have any close contacts, business contacts there, and I need someone's help. Do you know someone? And that works just as well in the Asian community or in the African American community or in the gay community if you happen to be heterosexual. And believe me, Madison Avenue and sophisticated companies discovered targeting these communities for their particular cultural benefits and cultural innuendos a long time ago. So if you're thinking like a global company, you need to do the same. Make connections outside of your own culture and preferences and ideas and faiths, and explore a whole new community that, when it goes huge, has very little to do with you. It has to do with your partnership with someone in that community. The last category is kind of new for me, but it's a rapidly expanding community, and I'm going to just title it social media. Now, I am not a social media guru. As a matter of fact, my daughter, who is now 24, but when she was 6, she taught me how to check my own email. She grew up in this age. I didn't. But since 2010, I've been on Facebook. Probably since 2012 on LinkedIn. And I now have 1,837 as of today Facebook contacts. Okay, or friends, I should call them. Friends. 1,837 friends on Facebook. 900 and something on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's different, though. I want to talk about both briefly. My point is, if somebody came to me and said, Russ, your life depends on this, I want you to name your 1,837 Facebook friends. Not in a million years could I do it. My point is, I probably know the tiniest number of the 1,837 that you could think of. I bet I know 100 of them, maybe more. But the vast majority of people I don't know at all. Somehow they've organically grown my Facebook by asking me to be their friend, and they know somebody that I knew, and they knew somebody that they knew, and they knew somebody that they knew. And somehow I've wound up with 1,800 people in 40 different countries that I don't know. I even thought it would be fun one day to go on a trip and explore the world and go to different countries just to meet my Facebook friends for the first time and see who they were. Well, it has also occurred to me that the most likely targets on Facebook aren't the people you know. Just like the warm market, remember, people ask you to be their friends that you don't know, and you say, okay. So why don't you look in your Facebook friends list for people you don't know them, and instead of soliciting them, write them a message and say, I'd like to get to know you. You're one of my Facebook friends. I have no idea who you are and how we got connected. And I would like to know who you are and how we got connected. That's all. So I know more about you as a person. Well, how's that? It works the same way. If you talk on the phone or if you're IMing on the internet, you can actually explore and meet new people who are already your friends. Now, LinkedIn is even sweeter because what I've noticed about LinkedIn is it's like a business social network. So the people that connect with you on LinkedIn, a lot of times they're up to something. If you'll notice, they might have an insurance practice. They might have a real estate business. They all have business. They say what their businesses are. Some of them are network marketing people. And the reason they connected with you, chances are, is because they want to get to know you. So you do the same thing back. You can connect with people on LinkedIn that you're already connected to. Don't connect with the strangers. You can do that too and build your LinkedIn base. I'm talking about connecting with the people you're already connected to and finding out what they do. Maybe they've got something of value for you. Maybe they could be a great business associate of yours. Maybe you could be a customer of theirs. Maybe they could be a customer of yours. Maybe you've got an opportunity they never thought of exploring before. But that's how you do it. You don't contact the people you know. You contact the people you don't know to find out who they are. That seems fair, doesn't it? I mean, if they ask you to be their friend and you don't know who they are, then I would say that that's fair game. That's what I'm doing. And you know what? Between these 4 categories that I've mentioned, and there's also one more, but I'm going to get into that another time because we don't have time today. Between these 4 categories that I have mentioned, you not only can come up with hundreds of prospects, you will never run out of them because they keep growing. Every one of these categories expands. And the best news of all is out of all the hundreds of prospects you might find, you know how many you need? About 6, about 7, about 10 to build a multi-million-dollar business over the next 2 or 3 years. You don't need to put 100 people in the business. Not when you know who you're dealing with. You might if you're just throwing it up against the wall and seeing what sticks. But how about sorting? How about choosing? How about thinking in terms that you're going to build a global business? And if you were building a global multi-million-dollar business, who would you choose to be in business with? What would they have to be? What would they have to show you to earn you inviting them to be your partner in business? What would they have to show you? What if when you asked somebody to be part of your business, it landed for them like an honor? They felt honored that you thought they were who you would pick. Wouldn't that be a different kind of feeling for you? That's the kind of feeling you need to have to build the kind of business I know you want to build. I feel that way about my sponsor. He has taught me as much as I've ever taught him. And he's somebody that I'm proud to hold out as being an example of what success looks like in network marketing. He's kind, he's generous, he's professional, he's open, he's a great listener. And I know you probably feel that way about your sponsor too. So that's why they should be part of your model. So, you know what? I've been going 50 minutes. It's hard to believe, but I've run over the time that I was promised for this call. I hope that in some way I gave you some new ideas. But just to recap, okay, anyone might be a prospect. So know who you're talking to. Remember, listening is generated. It's not reactive. And what if someone felt honored that they were selected to be in your business? Try giving up prospecting for a while. Just give it up the way you've been doing it and practice just connecting and listening and acknowledging traits that you notice in people. See what that brings you. Build a model based on yourself and the people you admire. Know what you're creating and building and how it includes other people, because that is what you're attracting people to, okay? Remember, associates, people who you are a customer of, cross-cultural networking, and social media, Facebook and LinkedIn, and connecting with the people who are your friends, but you don't know. That's it for today. I hope I've made a difference for you because that was my intention. If you disagree with anything I've said, that's perfectly all right. And if you have something that's working well for you, don't change it. Don't change what already works. But I hope I've been a contribution. I appreciate your time. God bless you. And thank you on behalf of Cliff Walker, Janess, and the great leaders on this call. This is Russ DeVan. God bless.